presenter. Okay.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Welcome, Samir. Samir Govardhan is a seasoned professional in strategy management. So, what I liked about Samir is he's expert in strategy planning part, which is his specialty. Of course, he knows the in and out of strategy execution and organizational change. Okay. So, yeah. So, would like to hear Samir. Have a good time. And thanks for joining. And please carry on from your side, and you can introduce briefly about yourself. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for all the esteemed speakers today. Mashallah, I think there is almost 120 to 30 years of experience collectively speaking here today in the last three. So it's overwhelming in terms of the wisdom that that I've got in just few minutes of engagement with these speakers. So thank you again very much. Is my screen visible to you guys?
Yes, it's visible. Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, it is visible. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So today, in the next half an hour or so, I'll try my best to skim through the strategic planning process from a practical approach. And just a brief about me. I am Samir. I worked for nearly 14 years of experience in different organizations. I'm a certified strategy project management professional, business planning professional as well. You can find me on LinkedIn. This is where I am. This is my email. And my passion is about strategy and managing the strategy itself. And the more I learn about it, the more I find that it's an ocean that just keeps getting deeper and deeper. And I'm just today also I learned so many new things. It just makes you feel so humbled that no matter how much you learn, you just have to keep learning new things. There is always something new and always something amazing out there that somebody's working on that you can share the experience from. All right, I will move on to the agenda. Basically, there are three items that I will be talking about. One is the introduction, then the planning framework.
Presentation mode. Can you make it presentation mode so that we can see?
Okay. Let me.
Yeah.
I thought it was in presentation mode.
Yeah.
Let me try again. Is it visible now in the presentation mode?
Not yet. Yep. It is still in a normal mode only. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you can reduce the ribbon on the top. Yeah. So that.
Sure. Just let me reshare again. So it's. Is it visible now?
It still did not come up, so maybe it'll come up. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Did you share it, Samir?
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's coming now. Yeah,
can you see the?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you for confirmation. So the agenda is basically three key points that I will be covering. One is just the brief introduction of strategic planning and strategy planning framework, and then followed by the common challenges and the key takeaways from a practitioner perspective. I will try to blend in the theory and the practice in one place. So a quick question to everybody, a food for thought is who here can predict the future? And I know it's very easy to say, but not me, definitely. It's very hard for me to predict the future, and I'm assuming everybody here is a practitioner also face the same challenge. And I can give you a case in point. 2020, 2019, if anybody said that, oh, I'm predicting a COVID and a lockdown, then we would need to have a separate conversation then, because I'm sure they can predict a lot more, many more things. I'll refer to Peter Drucker's very interesting message here. Nobody can predict the future. The idea is to have a firm grasp of the present. So essentially what we're trying to do, in my opinion, is we're trying to gather all the components, all the variables that revolve around strategic planning or organization, and try to gauge or assess a reasonably acceptable scenario of a future. Again, a lot of moving parts, a lot of variables there, but we will do, or we strive to do our best to gauge a reasonable picture of the future, how the future will look like, and as Dr. Osam had earlier mentioned, how we want to look in the future and come back and see, build our competencies. There are different schools of thought, strategies. This is a very good book by Dr. Henry, and 10 schools are there: designing, planning, positioning. I'll not delve deep into it. Our focus today will be more on the planning side of it rather than the other schools. And as Mr. Sheikh Saab earlier mentioned in the morning about the execution premium process, I'm also a certified execution premium graduate, and I firmly believe in this field, because this looks a very comprehensive methodology to me. I've done quite a research on this, and I'm trying to find to see if this still fits, and I see this is still more relevant as it stands from an execution perspective. What I will try to focus on today's session is on the planning side of it, to see how we can approach in a more practical way towards strategic planning. This is another book that I am very inspired by, and it's a very practical book called The Strategic Management: A Competitive Advantage by Advantage Approach by Dr. Fred David. And this is the framework that he follows, and I'll try to see how we can, capture this through our discussions. So what I did in my experience, in my humble experience, is I've tried to learn from different schools, and I've tried to implement what works for our organization, what works for me, what I can relate to. As Dr. Sam mentioned, and Mr. Gopal also had mentioned earlier, many schools, many frameworks, many approaches are there. At the end, what matters is how you look at it and what you can do from those tools. So looking at the organization, every organization has its own maturity and its own life cycle, considering the industry that it is in. So I will not delve deep into this. It's a standard life cycle for every organization and every industry that we operate in. Many examples are there. You have the the camera, you have the USB, many technologies available there. You have the bullock cart too. Now we are looking into space jets and whatnot. So you look at the industries, they are declining. Some of them are in mature stage right now. Some of them are actually beginning to evolve or getting into a growth phase, like the AI industry, the fintech industry. I believe they are in now more of a growth stage, as we had the other speaker speaking earlier. So the idea here is to understand which organization or what is the level of maturity that your organization is in as a practitioner. And you can be a startup and you can be a mature organization, like you can see some of those most valuable brands outside on the right side: Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. Almost all these industries did not exist at least 60 years ago. But there were GE, there was HP, Samsung was there in a different platform. Car manufacturers were there. But you can see the growth, the evolution of the companies, of all the industries there. And just to summarize the point here is, I cannot put Amazon at a startup level and say I will run the strategic planning cycle at that level, right? So the idea is to build a curated framework that fits for the organization. A GE has a lot of moving parts, very big organization across the globe. Coca-Cola, same way. You have McDonald's, same way. Mercedes and Toyota, same way. Moving on, I will focus on the strategy planning framework. And I think this is something that Dr. Assam was also talking, and Mr. Alex was also talking about, is the strategic altitude. You want to look at it from 30,000 feet altitude all the way to the ground level. And as a strategist, it's very important for us to understand the dynamics that work around, and the height or the scale of the operation that you would do from a strategic planning perspective. You start with the market and stakeholder needs, right? Build down and drill down from values, mission, vision, strategy, all the way to operations. One of the important things and basic things I will just reiterate is how do you execute your strategy, right? The In my opinion, the strategy can be executed in only two ways. One is the strategic initiatives that influence your strategy, and your business as usual. So it's your operations. Anything else, I'm yet to find out. But essentially, your strategy is executed through these two elements. Now, how you do it, at what level you do it, it's all subject to and the nature of the organization and the nature of industry you operate. Again, a combination of mission, vision, values. Where do you want to be? What you want to do? What is your purpose of existence? The resources you have in your hand, the capabilities that you have currently in your hand, and the opportunities that are available out there. You might not have the capabilities, but there are opportunities out there that you can build upon and you can thrive upon, and you can capitalize on them and then build your strategic fit. And there's so many cases out there that have evolved as a business model, have disrupted the industry itself. There is Netflix, that initially started as a drop-in DVD service provider, and then now you can all see how Netflix is where Netflix is today. Moving on. So as I mentioned, based on all my experience, all my research and study practice, I have customized and curated a framework that starts from on the left side, which is the strategic planning framework for the organization, all the way to cascading it to the department and to the employee level to manage their performance. This is the holism that we were discussing earlier, Dr. Osam was mentioning. And so I tried to build the holistic approach, no isolation, as Sheikh Saab was saying. So I tried to connect the dots wherever I could. And this is the framework that we came up with as a team. We did a lot of experimentation around it. And our focus today will be on the left side, which is on the organization, the foundation, external analysis, internal analysis, strategy selection, strategy translation to some extent. But I will, considering the time constraint, will stay at the strategy selection. So this is just the summarization or summary of what I just discussed in detail for today's session. The important thing here, as I mentioned earlier, is the cascading part of corporate to business unit to department to employees. If we ignore this element, then your strategy might be very comprehensive, very good document, but it might be a theoretical exercise if you don't execute it and ensure it is cascaded down to the employees level. And again, there is a feedback system. The moment you build your strategy, you agree, there is a consensus that this is the strategy chosen. You would need to go back to the foundation and see if it is still relevant, if it is still making sense in terms of your mission, vision, and values, and the business model is still relevant based on the strategy that you have chosen. And do you need to change your operating model as we had discussed earlier? I will quickly take you through the time frames. So typically, if you want to build a strategy for 3 to 5 years, in my experience, it can last from 1 to 3 months. It's only for the strategy planning, not the whole cycle, just to be clear. And if you want to do 1 to 3 years of strategy, 3 to 5 weeks is a reasonable time. Again, there is a lot of prerequisites that needs to be there and a lot of information that needs to be available for you. 1 year or 4 quarters or even quarter basis of your operational planning. For a startup, this might be more relevant. You can take 2 to 4 weeks. As I mentioned, again, strategic planning is a continuously evolving process. It's not a rigid exercise. It's not you follow 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 and you can at the end you somehow reached the strategic plan. There is a method to the madness. There is a practical approach to do it, but it's a evolving process. The framework that I have shown you earlier, it has evolved. The way we started was very basic and very nascent level, but it has evolved and matured over the years. So how do you assess the your current capabilities from a strategy perspective? What is your organization focused on strategy at all? If yes, how very well or how much they are focused on strategy organization? So what we came across was a very good tool. I think Sheikh Saab has already incorporated this into the strategy. Is you look at the 5 elements, you ask yourself or the leadership key questions, and I will not get into the details of this, but basically it focuses on what capabilities you have. Does your strategy reflect into the budget? Are the people aligned? Are there any initiatives that are driving your strategy or not? And you rate yourself. You can give it to anybody and everybody, somebody who has good understanding or basic understanding of your strategy, and you come up with a score, and then you rate yourself. Now you can do it at a 6 months horizon, you can do it an annual horizon. We used to do it at an annual horizon to understand the shift that has been made. And this is an assessment. Like I said, it's more of a subjective approach, but when you have a reference point, you're okay to work with. So when we have a reference point starting at 1.1 1.77, and then we did some initiatives, then it has improved. Then we have made continuous evolution. Then in 2023, let's say this is just a simulation, it went down. It could be many reasons, due to the change in leadership, due to change in the business model, or there are many reasons that can influence this. But this is a very good tool. The tool is available online. You can do a lot of research, but I found this to be very good to assess the strategy focus of an organization, and the questions are still relevant. Moving on to the foundation, one of the most underrated the exercise is the strategy, the stakeholder analysis. Give me 1 second. Is the stakeholder analysis. You have the primary, you have the secondary. Primary are the employees, customers, distributors, your business partners, investors, shareholders, and suppliers. And then you have the secondary, government, community, media, competitors, regulatory bodies, and financial institutions. So what we do as a tool is we analyze who these stakeholders are, what is their category, primary or secondary. What is the impact of this is basically, if it's a primary, you have to be extra concerned about their expectations. Secondary, you may or may not have, but you should have a reasonable understanding of what their expectations is, and then you map their impact. Is it high, medium, low? And then you set their expectations. Ideal way to do it is you engage with them and ask them what is their expectation from you, and then you capture that. That's the ideal way, but practical reasons, sometimes it's not possible for you to engage them. So you put your own reasonable expectations on what could they be expecting from you, right? And then you document this, and then you start building upon it. As and when you identify more stakeholders, you can go to as detailed as what level of employees are there strategic jobs, and you can start documenting their expectations, and the management, if there are different types of management or different chiefs, you can go to that detail level. This is your choice. But as I mentioned, the stakeholder expectation is very critical for the whole exercise. Otherwise, you might ignore a stakeholder, and he can come and later on just give you insight information that might change the whole planning exercise itself, the outcome of the planning exercise. And I've seen this happening in my experience. Okay, following up on the mission, vision, and the core values, you start with the core values as the base. And I know there are different schools that follow mission comes first and the vision comes first, and then core values are there just to are selected based on what you think is a good core value. In essence, the core values are identified, they are discovered, they are not necessarily selected. It's not a choice. It's basically the DNA of the organization. What decisions, what parameters you will use to make a decision. What do you believe? Are you really eco-friendly organization, right? Now that should reflect on the decisions that you make, right? Do you really believe in respect? Do you really believe, and do you reflect on let's say responsibility or agility? So these are good words to have, but it has to reflect in the organization's way of operations. Followed by the mission. As I mentioned, mission, you identify. I will not get details into it, but again, it tells you the fundamental purpose of your existence. Why do you exist? What you do. Good example here is the Google's mission, which is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. It's so relevant. One of the key parameters of a mission is it should last over time, over significant changes, unless there is some paradigm shift in the organization itself, but it's still relevant. But if you look at Google now, they have diversified into so many areas and so many businesses, but essentially it revolves around information, somehow directly or indirectly. Followed by the vision. Vision is basically, I know, as I mentioned, there are two schools that says vision comes first and then the mission. But let's look at it. You can look at vision from a long-term vision perspective and a short-term vision perspective, which is 3 to 5 years or 10 years. And I'll give you an example following now to show you what vision could look like. But in a nutshell, what vision talks about is where you want to be in a future, and what your future will look like for you as an organization, right? And it's essential that it needs to be quantified. If you write a good statement which is not quantified, which is not broken down into actually something that you can actually measure, and then you can actually say that, okay, yes, today I've reached here. And I've seen so many examples where they say we want to be a market leader. Okay, what does market leader mean? These are some very important questions that need to be addressed, but which often get ignored. And then later on you find out that we said that we're a market leader, but we just don't know what market leader is or who the market leader is, right? So as I mentioned, giving a perfect example, and I've seen this transformation with my own eyes, and I'm seeing it, living it on a day-to-day basis. Saudi Arabia Vision 2030. It's one of the largest entities or organization that is driving strategy planning to execution, to benefit realization, to vision realization, right? And if you go to their website, it's evident from the progress, the plan that they have set in place, and the progress that they have made so far. It's unreal. And I'm living through, for those who are in Saudi Arabia right now, you can see, and I'm seeing it since last 10 years, and there is an exponential shift. It's a tectonic shift for the whole country in itself, and the pace at which it's going, it's unreal. And I am telling you from as a resident, and I'm seeing it from a strategic perspective also. It's just exponential, and I think everybody knows there's a lot of news in the media out there to tell you what kind of shift we are talking about, right? And this is His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman, as he had mentioned about Vision 2030. And their areas are very clear: to have a brighter future for their country and the citizens that reside within it. This is just a quick input on what the shift has been made, which areas they are targeting, what the mega projects or giga projects, as we call it, have been doing. And I would want to just elaborate on the translation of the vision, and you can see it's available on the portal, on the website, for everybody to see. But their themes are basically ambitious nation, thriving economy, and a vibrating society. They're broken down into objectives, they're broken down into sub objectives, and they have established programs. And whatever we see today as a resident, be it online applications, be it education system, the transport, all of these are outcome, and the tourism that is being promoted, the sports that's being promoted, all of these are an outcome of these programs. This is the last available information, that was FY 2020. The indicators just reflect for themselves to see what kind of shift they are. But in a nutshell, basically they are shifting towards a non-oil dependent country, and you can see the results for yourself if you're a Saudi resident or a Saudi national. it's amazing. It's just amazing to see the growth or the implementation of the strategic plans that they have. All right, moving on to the tool. The one of the key elements that I always emphasize is on the business model analysis, and you can start with as simple as business model canvas. This is by all means not a strategy planning tool in itself, but what I found how people often ignore the basic elements of a business, and b- because they've been running the business for so many years, they have often taken it for granted, or they just say, okay, it's part and parcel of the game, so we don't need to talk about it, we don't need to discuss about it, right? And I think earlier Mr. Gopal was mentioning about the customer value proposition. This is talking about that. So it starts with the customer value proposition, what value you're bringing to your customer, and then where from where you can get that value, what activities you need to do, what resources you need, what kind of partnerships you need to build, which are your customers, who are your customers, what segment they are in, what kind of relationship you have with them, what kind of channels you'll be talking to them through or engaging them through, what kind of revenue streams you have, and what kind of cost structure you have. And even at a startup level, this is very I found it to be very useful when you're building a plan for a startup company or a relatively new company, and even for a mature organization. A lot of the information might be available with in people's mind and people's thought process or in the systems, but when you look at it from this perspective, it gives you in a nutshell what the business is all about. And when we implemented, it was amazing to communicate to people that, look, this is what our value proposition is, these are our customers, these are our A grade or top priority, these are our channels, these are the key resources. So if you look at it from a holistic perspective, it gives you engages you at an organization level, so everybody has a role to play in this. Followed by the operating model, the reflection. If you're already established organization or reasonably mature organization, you will have your operating model in place. Might not necessarily be documented in the way. Again, if you're a GE or Amazon, it will be a different ball game. But I'm talking about a reasonably mature organization, 10-20 years of maturity, and my experience is based mostly in GCC region, so I can relatively talk about GCC more. Uh, you need to document your operating model, understand what the operating model is, how do you deliver the value in itself, right? The organization, I'll not delve deeper into this. It's there, the tool is available, but it's important to understand the where this tool fits into the strategic planning framework. Okay, one of the most important or element of understanding or setting the vision is the strategic change agenda tool. I found this to be very useful, is to make a, let's say, a thought-provoking conversation with the leadership to understand what the future looks like, what do we believe the future will play out, or how the future will play out for us, where do we stand. Let's say, imagine where you will be in 2025 or now 2020, 28 or 2027. You pick a date as per your organization maturity. But essentially what it does in a nutshell, it tells you what parameters you should consider for you to be in a future state that will help you realize your vision. If you already have a vision established, this is a good point or a good tool to validate your vision. Have you really realized your vision, or do you need to do something more? And this is just a simple example that shows you, starting from the factors that you want to focus on. Let's say product and market portfolio. Where do you, how many product portfolio you want? Do you currently, you are at 10, do you want to be at 20, you want to have 13, you want to let go of 3? You can, this, it's a very good tool for you to be free and open minded to think, visualize the future, considering the factors. For example, governance, processes, people, market share, information technology. These are just some of the parameters. You can feel free to add as you like. You can break that down over the years, as I can as you can see here in the example, the product portfolio from year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, it's a good tool. You can continuously iterate it, build upon it, but this is not your also people can confuse this to strategic objectives. It may or may not be, but the idea and these could be your KPIs as well, but this is not necessarily your strategy balance scorecard objectives and KPIs. It's very important to separate these from those. Talking about value gap, essentially what you do after establishing your mission, vision, values, and the future desired outcome, and then you see where you stand, and then you identify the value gap, and that's the value you're trying to build. And that's this is just an example of what we had done. We had broke, as I mentioned to you earlier, we had a vision, we broke it down into key components, and then we further elaborated on what that particular element means to us and what we will do about it, right? And this is not necessarily the strategic initiatives here on this at this level itself, but to identify what our focus areas will be, and essentially closing and or the filling the value gap is the essence of the strategy. And this is what I have learned so far, and I think all the esteemed speakers here, the experienced people, also agree with me on this, that to fill this gap is what we're trying to do from a strategic planning perspective. Then once you do that, you go back and you revisit your mission, vision, and your core values to see if it is still relevant. So normally what happens is you have your mission, vision, nobody even considers it to change it, which could be true, but it's important to evaluate, assess to see if there is any change. If your vision is changing, will your mission have a component of it that will change, right? You need to always assess that that situation to see if there is any new changes that need to be made from that perspective. Now moving on to the external analysis. So external analysis starts with your macro environment and your micro environment. So macro environment, as we had discussed earlier, the elements that are going across the board that you might not necessarily have a direct control on or have an impact on, but those are elements or the events or the facts that are being addressed at a global level. Now your globe could be as small as a small area or a city, or it could be as big as the whole world if you're an Amazon or a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi. But these are the key parameters that you can consider: inflation, general economics, the GDP, government policies, the demographics, the technology, artificial intelligence, disruption in technology field itself, environmental regulations and policy, and the legal parameters. What I found out is it's amazing how people often underrate the importance of regulations, policies, and the change in the social trends as well. And I think we had discussed this earlier about how the social trend is now moving towards Instagram and TikTok and all these other social media platforms that you are now using to market your products or services, instead of having the old school or the traditional approach of building flyers and advertising hoardings. Now you're building curated marketing strategies for addressing specific customers who could be a repeat customer or your new potential customers. Then again, micro environment, start with customers. You have your competitors, your rivals, substitutes, suppliers, and the complementaries that will add value to your organization. Moving on, how would you how would you operationalize this? While it's good in theory, how would you want to put it in practice, right? So what we have learned is you take the element that you do your research, market report, do your desktop research, get insights from your teams, leadership, whoever they are, and then you identify what those parameters are from a political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental perspective, and you identify from your organization perspective, is it going to be a positive impact or negative impact? If it is positive, how high is it going to be a positive impact? For example, if you're a tech-driven company, your organization is fully engaged on technology. You have all the systems in place to going through technology. If the technology, the internet, the penetration grows across the country, that adds as a value to you. It's an advantage for you. So you can engage more people. Your market size, potential market size, could be much higher now because you're a tech company driven by, you have a tech product, so you're now engaging more people. This is just an example. Regulations, economical regulations. Now the new trend is about ESG, ESG investing. A lot of people are serious about it. Governments are asking to have ESG parameters established into the strategic planning or the management framework. So you need to consider those elements. How does this impact? Coming from a construction experience, I can tell you it's considerable impact on the regulations that we have from a legal and the environmental perspective. So we have to cater to those. This is just an example that we had prepared, or we have actually used practically to engage, to identify. We did a research and shortlisted the political, the pestle factors that influences our organization. Then the industry analysis. Not everybody knows this. I'm not gonna take much time on this, but here what we are trying to identify essentially is the factors that are positive for you as an organization. Now those could be the common factors for everybody, but again, going back to the organizational maturity, if you're, let's say, a leader with a 10-20% market share, if there is a new entrant starting in a small scale in one of the location in the country, that might not have a huge impact on you, because it might take him decades for to even compete with you. So the idea here is to understand the factors that at an industry level are being played and how it impacts you as an organization. So eventually you will come up with something similar to this. You will understand overall the threat of entrance is good or bad. Are there substitutes for you, for your product or not? This is a concrete company, so there is literally no except for the brick and mortar or cast and stone, there is no alternative for concrete. So that's why the threats to substitute is practically very less. Moving on to the market size, this is a very good tool that you can use to assess your market size, starting with total available market, serviceable available market, then the target market and the market share. So the total available market is basically all the globe that you're trying to focus on. For example, if you are a small brick and mortar store in one of the location in one city, the total available market for you could be the city itself, right? But the serviceable market for you would be the area or the locality that you are living in, because somebody from the other side of the city might not come to you to buy your product, right? And the target market is the people who you are trying to engage with, or the customers you're trying to get or you already have. And then the market share is basically your share from that bigger pie. It's the information that you can get for here is different sources. You can get market reports for this for a well-established industry, but if you don't, you can rely on the expertise of your sales and marketing team. Normally they will have the repository of information to give you what the market is, what their market share is, what area they're playing in, what is the serviceable available market. So this is something very important to understand, that if I am a giant like Walmart, am I competing with a local store, in a nook and corner, or a mom and pop store, right? It's or the vice versa. Also, if you're an online, let's say online delivery company, are you competing with a normal restaurant or a breakfast sandwich store across the corner? It's important to understand that there is no right and wrong answer in this. The idea here is to establish your market size. That's the whole idea here. Moving on to the competitor analysis, basically it's one of the key elements that people don't know who their competitors are, and sometimes they do, but they don't know how they are competing with them or on what areas they are competing with them. So this tools helps you understanding the key success factors that will influence this decision for for a customer or a potential customer to buy your product or your competitor's product. So here, this tool, you can identify the factors based on your industry. It could be technology, it could be pricing, it could be distribution, fleet, subject to the nature of your organization. And you describe and you give it a rating from 0 to 1, 1 being the max for the total. So if you have 5 factors, you can give, point 2, point 2, point 2, eventually rating at 1. And then you rate yourself. Ideally, if you're a listed company, you will know who the industry leaders are, and what the market share. So information is relatively easily available. But if you're not, you would want to rely on the experience of your sales and marketing team, and you identify the parameters. You have your market intelligence to get you this information, like pricing can be easily available, market, the fleet size can be easily available, the locations that they're operating in is easily available. But the idea here is to get you to identify who your competitor is. Now, if you have 10 competitors and you're sitting in 7th, you're not directly competing with the number 1, right? There will be a lot of gap that you will need to cover to be able to even come on the same map as the competitor A is. So if you're sitting at 2-3% market share and somebody is at 30%, you will need to build a lot of capabilities to reach there. Okay. So this is the important part. Whatever we discussed earlier, basically now I'm trying to summarize all of them from an external in a table that collects the opportunities and threats, and then we give a rating to it based on this. It's a very good tool. It's called IE Matrix, and I'll show you how it looks like in the following slides. But here, basically, whatever we did now earlier, we identified in the external analysis the global landscape, the opportunities and threats, and from a global perspective, then from an industry perspective, then from a competitor perspective. And then you pick the top 10 that you think are relevant to your organization, and then essentially you give yourself your rating and your responsiveness towards it. And eventually you will come up with a rating that will last from 1 to 4, and you will see where you can map that in the following slides. And this is something that we had done earlier. This is just for an example. Now moving on to so once we establish the opportunities and threats, now we have moved on to the internal analysis, where we look inwards and see where do we stand. And this is again a very renowned tool, standard, everybody knows it. I'll not spend much time in it. You need to look at your kitchen. You need to know what your primary activities are: operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales. Identify what areas do you operate in. Sometimes it's amazing how people don't even understand or don't look at the basic things, and they just take it for granted, only to realize later when there is an issue, then they realize, oh, we should have done this before. So again, from our experience, these are the key departments that you want to consider standard, but there might be more departments concerned in your organization. One of the key elements that is often underlooked is the governance side, which is what I want to iterate or emphasize on, is the importance of governance, the management structure that is there. Uh, People are too operational to think from a governance perspective, or is it really, are we doing the right things, are we really following the corporate guidelines? I found in my experience it's one of the most underlooked and underestimated element or a function for an organization to grow. IT again, I everything that we do now is revolving around technology. So IT, I don't think is at a supportive level now. It's more of a forefront, and it's taking the lead in almost everything that we're doing. Quality and R&D, you may choose to have or not, depending on your organization. But if you're talking about innovation in your mission statement and vision statement, then you better have a R&D function that is actually working on innovation. Then you do the capabilities analysis. Again, it's a standard form, you look at where you stand, what your capabilities are, what what resources you are available that you can build your capabilities upon. This is just a grid that shows you the tangible versus intangible, with people versus system. So you can plot yourself, understand what I may have the resource, but they're not my competing capability that I can build upon. And then, summarizing all of this, you ask yourself questions, you do your financial analysis, you do your operations analysis, quality management. All of that should eventually reflect in your strength and weaknesses internally. And you list down, as I mentioned earlier, top 10. You identify what are the key strengths that you have and the key weaknesses. And then you rate yourself, talking from one being a major weakness, that means it's a really bad situation, and 4 being a major strength. And now we move to the strategy selection part, which is the now amalgamation of the external analysis, internal analysis, and the foundation that we had set in stone. One of the most important elements of strategy planning framework is understanding the facts and identifying the assumptions and documenting them. This is something that many people or many organizations ignore. They think assumption is only at a budgeting level, that I am assuming to grow at 5% or 3%. But there are many other assumptions you have to make, you need to consider in your planning framework. And every time you look at your strategy planning or you do your strategy review, you need to come and look at this slide or this table, which tells you what facts have changed, are they still relevant, or do we need to change something, what assumptions we made during our planning cycle and what has changed, are they still relevant, is the industry still growing, is there a disruption, is the HR dynamics have changed, is there a new technology out there in the market now. So you need to document this. That is the most important part of it, to identify what are the facts and assumptions and document them, and ensure that it is communicated with everybody at periodical basis, to understand that there is still relevance to whatever we had discussed during the planning cycle. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, we summarize both external and internal analysis, and we conclude on the IE matrix. Here is the tool. It's a very good tool that we found through the it's available in the book by Dr. Fred David. You can look at this, but this is a very good tool. Basically, it tells you at a grid level, there are 9 boxes that tells you, once you identify your IFE score and EFE score, you essentially plot that combined average rating on any of these grids, and that indicates you what kind of strategy you should be approaching, or what kind of strategy you should be considering for you as going forward, considering the facts and assumptions, the strengths and weaknesses. So again, it's not a random thought process. You would want to make it more objectively driven as much as you can, considering the information that is available. So it's focusing on that side to let's say objectify or make it more technical exercise than rather than a pure subjective exercise, that okay, our strengths are more than weaknesses, so let's just grow, or there is opportunity, so we just build our capabilities. So it's essentially trying to connect those dots together in a logical way, but we found this to be very useful. You can go and read into it and find out more about it. But in a nutshell, what it tells you, if you look at it from the quadrant 1, 2, and 4, it's more on the growth. That means you have better control over the market share. You're a good player. You're a leader. So you should be essentially looking at product development, market penetration, integrating backward, downward, and horizontal as well. And then you look at the extreme, which is, if you are not a good player, if your strengths are very low, your weaknesses are considerably high, you don't have capabilities to capitalize on the opportunities and threats are overwhelming, you might want to consider looking at harvesting or divesting from the business that you are in. And then if you are in the center, it basically, you just need to hold your ground and continue to do what you're doing. while ensuring that you have enough scalability in your business to ensure there is market penetration and you develop your product. So the idea is to move towards the 1, 2, and 4 quadrant eventually. I found this tool very useful. We have practically implemented this and it works. And then, as we've been considerably discussing earlier about the importance of scenario planning, we found a practical way to do scenario planning. I'm sure there are many ways, many permutations and combinations, approach and scientific approach and statistical approach to do scenario planning. We have tried to simplify it for our organization to make it more acceptable, more to make it more consumable. So what we did essentially is we took the opportunities and threats that what we identified earlier, and then you create scenario 1 and scenario 2 and scenario 3. If you remember, the weightage column is where you give the importance to it, that how important it is for you as an organization, and the rating, that means your responsiveness towards it. So when you run the simulation saying, okay, if a rating is 1 and then weightage is 0.2, then you create another scenario where you're increasing the rating and you're increasing the weightage, it gives you a different outcome. And eventually you would want to come to this map that shows you all the 3 scenarios that you're trying to plan or that you're trying to simulate for your strategy selection. And it should give you a grid that shows you how your strategy will look like. This is just an example what we had chosen for based on the analysis that we had done. And then you again plot it in the IE matrix grid, and then you see what strategies are panning out based on the scenarios that you have chosen. As I mentioned, there are 12 potential scenarios that are for strategy that are listed here. There are many ways, many other tools out there. There is CPM, there is Space Matrix, there is Grand Strategy Matrix as well. But we found this to be most reasonable and practical for us to implement and apply. And as you can see on the right corner, this is just an example of what we thought would be reasonable, and what we had chosen at that time was the hold and maintain, which is the hybrid. We try to stick to our grounds. And then once you finish the strategy selection, you again come back to the framework, and then you reiterate. If after all this exercise that you have done, you have taken weeks, engaged so many stakeholders, participants, so much research, so much analysis done, you need to again go back to the foundation, have a quick skim through. Is there anything fundamentally that has changed since our strategy was selected? Or did we choose a strategy that is not making sense with our mission, vision, value, or the business operating model? So as I mentioned, this is an iterative process. You need to continue to do this. It's a continuously evolving process. It will not stop once you choose, say, this is my strategy, I'm done. So that's where the music actually starts. So you need to go back and then you reiterate and see if there is anything changed. If not, you move to the next cycle. You get the sign off from the top management, and then you start translating it, which is the bottom 2 boxes on the left side. And I think already everybody spoke enough about the strategy translation and the budgeting part. I will not discuss on that. Okay, the last part is the common pitfalls and the key takeaways. I will focus. What I came up with is there is a lot to talk about in terms of what I've personally experienced, what I've gone through, but I've tried to minimize it to 10. And from an organization perspective and from a strategist perspective, I'll focus on organizations. And I think it's been already mentioned multiple times in different sessions earlier. A lack of involvement of leadership, and it's you can safely assume your strategy exercise will not work. It's as simple as that. The top management needs to be part of this, actively engaged, and also they need to establish the consequence, that if you do not plan, there is a consequence. If you plan, there is a consequence. That is one of the key elements that organizations often ignore. Ignoring the organizational maturity. You need to understand the dynamics of your organization, the industry, culture, capabilities, the geographies. It's one solution does not fit all. You cannot just go through the motions. You have to understand the maturity of the organization. If the information is not available, as I mentioned in point 6, the integrity of the information is not available, your strategy might not be that accurate. You might not feel that comfortable if your information is not available. Then going back, you want to separate the annual business exercise, budgeting and business planning exercise, from the strategic planning exercise. These are two separate elements. While I understand they're closely knit together, but to be able to disengage from operations, to be able to look at a holistic view, you need to go off the site. You need to start looking at the company from a high level perspective, not being too operational, and while you're doing your operation then you start working on strategy. It doesn't work, in my opinion. You need to give it due respect and due time to be able to have that particular let's say the quality of strategy that you want to or you aspire to build. Not having comprehensive a strong and a comprehensive IT solution, that is very important. A lot of work can be expedited and reasonably moved faster if you have a good solution. And I have, in my experience, I've worked with almost explored 7-8 tools out there for strategy management. It's very hard to find a solution that fits everything, all the strategy planning to execution to reporting and the governance element of it from a strategy governance perspective. Either they're very good in initiative management, or they're very good in strategy planning, or they're very good in reporting. And I'm not referring to the ERP solutions. I'm talking about strategy management, or custom strategy management solutions and softwares. Very few, and I found couple of them out there, and Fruit Strategy is one of them. And I've seen it evolve over the last 2-3 years, and mashallah, they've done a great work because they understand the components of strategy. It's very rare to find such schools of thoughts that take strategy planning all the way till reporting. Again, another key point is not investing enough in strategy management capabilities. This is again going back to the solution part. You need to, if you're an organization, you need to have the due systems, the needed systems, the capabilities. You need to invest in people to engage them, to teach them about strategy management. If you believe as a strategy should be planned and it should be executed, it should be reported, you need to invest. You need to give its due respect to from a capabilities point of view. And you can't expect miracles from 2-3 people and somehow say, okay, go make the strategy and come back to me after 3-4 months. Doesn't work. So you need to invest. Again, reiterating the same point of underestimating the importance of change management and enterprise risk management. If you do not have the change management capabilities, it doesn't have to be a dedicated function separate setup. It can be embedded with strategy management and initiative management or an enterprise risk management. But the idea is to have the capabilities. Somebody needs to talk about the change management in the organization, and it's a point that should be discussed. It's a point that should be invested in. It's an element that has to be revolving around everything that you're doing as an organization. From a strategist, I can talk a lot about this, but one of the key points that I want to focus on is not being prepared. As a strategist, you need to be prepared. You need to simulate the whole exercise before it starts. You need to have the right tools, the frameworks, the systems. You need to have the clarity how you will approach the whole planning exercise, right? Otherwise, you cannot go haphazardly in a hurry and not having the templates. And there's so many instances where you use a template and then the other person uses a different template, and then now you're forced to use that template and you have to build, and now you extrapolate that to different business units, different departments, and good luck organizing all that information in one place. So you need to be prepared. You need to have the tools and templates before. One of the important elements as a strategist you should have is the power of simulation. You need to simulate the outcomes from the beginning. When you go to a workshop, you need to simulate what the expectations of that workshops are before, and then you prepare accordingly. It's one of the biggest challenge, and I know all can agree here with me, is getting people in one room is one of the most challenging and painful exercise task for a strategist. Everybody's too engaged in operations, too busy. It's very hard for them to come to a meeting and start talking about strategy because they're firefighting on something. So you need to make the most out of the limited time that is available to you, and then setting the right expectations from the top management. You don't want to sell them a execution premium process framework and say, I will do this by the end of this year. It's not going to happen. No matter which organization you are in, it's just practically not possible, in my opinion. It's a continuously evolving process. It's a journey. uh, as an example, to implement balanced scorecard methodology itself, it takes you 2 to 3 years, provided a lot of things go in your favor, right? Same applies to everything that you do in a strategic planning framework as well. Whatever you do, you need to set reasonable expectations. You say, okay, I will start with here, next year we will go to next level, then we evolve and we go along. One of the important thing is to collaborate with finance and HR and the sales team, especially during the frame planning exercise. If you ignore them, if you avoid them because they're not, then it's gonna come back and challenge you or haunt you during your annual business planning exercise and the budgeting exercise. Again, working in silos, the same point I mentioned. Then uh, you need to document. One of the important aspects that strategists often ignore is the documentation of the strategy itself. uh, like one of the things that we did is we built a one-stop shop template that starts all the way from identifying your mission, vision, values, all the way till the reporting of your strategy. It's in one file, one document. You don't need to look different places. And it's our responsibility as strategists to document this. Others will not document it for you. Even though strategy is there, the accountability might be on them, the ownership might be on them, but you need to document your strategy. And it's amazing at how it benefits you as a strategist in the years to come or the quarters to come. So when you look back 2 years, when you started the strategy journey, and then you look back at the document, you will you'll be amazed to see how many points are still relevant and how the process itself has evolved, how many people have changed, how many departments have evolved. So it's very important to document the strategy. And you can use tools. There are many tools available. Even if you cannot, worst case, you cannot afford a tool, use Excel, Google Sheet, whatever you feel you're comfortable with. Ignoring the technical and interpersonal skills, I cannot emphasize more on this. One of the key elements of a strategist is to be to be collaborative as a person, to build a trust with other functions, other people. They need to engage with you, they need to feel comfortable working with you. They need to feel that the positivity, that you are there to support them, that you are there to help them out, and not as somebody who's trying to enforce something on them. uh, that's something I believe is an art. I don't think a framework will tell you how to do this, but you need to continuously work upon it. Again, another key elements is, once you do the strategy planning, you don't focus on the annual budgets. You don't ensure that it is reflecting on your annual budgets or the business plan. You just say, okay, we chose a strategy, and then you say, okay, this is the document, thank you very much, and finance over to you guys. That doesn't work. You as strategists need to ensure that they're reflecting on the documents from business plans and annual budgets. Whatever strategic initiatives you chose should be there in your annual budget. As Sheikh Saab said earlier, it's statics. You can consider it statics, capex. This is for your organization, but the bottom line is you need to ensure they are considered in your annual budgets. I think we come to the close. Just few points on the key takeaways. I will not take much time. I'll just focus on few points. One is the best practice. Best practice is what fits to your organization. There are many tools, many frameworks, many schools out there. Everybody says this is the best. This is the best. Bottom line is you need to find out what works for you and start. You need to believe in that system and start evolving, developing that system towards maturity. It's what matters to your organization. If your organization says that vision comes first, then vision comes first. We cannot enforce that mission comes first and then vision comes first. And if they don't believe in balanced scorecard, they don't believe in balanced scorecard. So don't go for balanced scorecard. If the organization does not believe in balanced scorecard, they might look at OKR. It might work for them, right? Same way, vice versa. And one of the important things. Sorry, is that somebody saying something?
Yeah, no. You can carry on.
Oh,
Samir, try to conclude.
okay. Yes, concluding this last 1 minute. So one of the other important thing is making it everybody's job, everyone's job. It's not. It's very often that people think that strategy is, the strategy department will come and they will do the strategy, and they will say, okay, you make the scorecard, you come back to me and you give me, and I will give you my feedback. That doesn't work. You need to engage them. This is a continuously evolving process. You need to continuously strive to do this, to engage them on a strategy level, to manage their strategy. All the chiefs are the strategists, and all the people who are working on your strategy are the strategists. It's not just you. And then always try to simplify things. The last point and the most important thing is to simplify whatever you're doing. You don't have to throw everything at all these stakeholders. You need to simplify, keep things simple and short, so they give you enough component for you to move the ball forward or take the ball forward for your strategy planning exercise. We don't have to complicate a lot. You can do a lot of back end work, and you give only the relevant things for them, so they fill in the component. If they're actively engaged, then you can engage them, show the whole process itself. You can engage them throughout the strategy planning process. But again, focus on simplification. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Perfect. So very knowledgeable session, Samir. One point is strategy planning is the most non-standard process. Okay, there is no
Yes.
standard framework. Nobody agrees on what is best or what is. Yeah, now I think Mihai and other experts are trying to standardize it. That is very good
Yes.
move to add the value to the industry. Okay, we are very happy to see the strategy practitioners trying to standardize the whole things. Now I see the big value in speakers sharing their ideas. So of course there are still there are few points where we don't agree, but we are in the right direction. Okay, so thank you, Samir. Due to lack of time, we'll take up questions. I will post you, and then
sure.
you can answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Samir.
I really enjoyed. Thank you very much, and it's a learning experience for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah,